Welcome everybody to our next session. I hope you enjoyed coffee and bagel just now and spent some time meeting other attendees. We'll randomly be selecting one participant as a winner for a $50 Starbucks gift card. The winner will be receiving an email from us in just a few minutes, so please be on the lookout for that. At the end of the conference, we will announce all of the coffee and bagel winners on the conference platform homepage. The session you have just joined is a training on reporting tax credits with 8609s and 8610s with Sarah Serpernot, customer success rep trainer, customer success representative trainer for ProLink Solutions. This session has an intermediate difficulty level. Before we start the session, just a few housekeeping things I'd like to go over in case you missed it at our last session. On the right side of your screen, you'll see a chat feature. Just click on the chat icon and you'll be able to begin chatting with your fellow attendees. Feel free to post any comments or questions that you have throughout the session in the chat, and we will try to provide responses or any follow-up that's needed. Please note that all of your posts will be visible to all other attendees. Additionally, on the right side of your screen below the chat feature is the poll feature. Throughout this session, 3 poll questions will be displayed one by one. You'll have about 30 seconds to respond to the poll, after which we will close them. You will then be able to see the results once we've posted them. We encourage a lot of participation. And also, as a reminder, this is where you can download a copy of the materials used in this session in the sessions page in the attendee hub. You can download it anytime before, during, or after this session. Now, I'd like to pass things off to Sarah. Please take it away, Sarah.
Thank you, Alexis. Hello, everybody. I'm setting up my screen. Let me go ahead and share that. All right. Welcome. If this is your first time at ProLink Tech Live, it's good to see you. And everybody who has been here before, it's good to see you as well, even though I really can't see you, but you know what I mean. Today, we're going to talk about our 8609 setup in ProLink HFA, the data that you need to set up before you populate your 8609s, and then how you use that data from TCA Buildings and 8609s to create your tax form 8610 package. So first, let's talk about setting up TCA Buildings in ProLink HFA. But I think we have a poll question first. Our first question is, does your agency currently utilize the 8609 functionality in ProLink HFA? I think we have 30 seconds to answer this. So go ahead and answer yes or no. Sam will be over there calculating your responses after 30 seconds are done. I am timing the 30 seconds with my trusty Fitbit. I know that not everybody does use the 8609 functionality. And if you don't, we would be more than happy to help you get started and make sure that all your data is populated to benefit your 8609 generation. All right, that's 30 seconds. Sam?
Yep, go ahead and click to the next slide.
Yes, 79%. Excellent. Okay, so you may learn something new today. You may not, but let's see what we can share with everybody who doesn't use our 8609 functionality and discuss that. So first thing we want to talk about is during the normal process, best process, you've created your TCA dev deal in ProLink HFA. You've gone through your construction phase or your ACK rehab phase. At some point during this, whether it was cost cert or manually, you have added buildings that are going to be used for your tax credits. And on the 8609 screen, when you go to a TCA deal and you click on buildings, sometimes you're going to have like more than one buildings, but every time you advance the stage, it does create additional rows in this data view. That's because data may change from stage to stage. So if you ever wondered why there's so many buildings, that's why. But when we talk about 8609s, we are specifically talking about generating those in the 8609 app feasibility stage. That is the only place, apologies. You can only do this, create your 8609s in the 8609 app feasibility stage. Some people have put in tickets to wonder why they're not seeing the 8609 availability on a building, and that is why. So if you don't see it, don't panic. Just make sure that your stage is advanced to the correct stage. So once you have that advanced to 8609 app feasibility, when you look at that Edit TCA building screen, you're going to see your Add 8609 button. So that's how you know that you're good to go with your 8609s. So that is just kind of your data setup as far as making sure you have your building data. Now we're going to talk about some of the data, where it comes from and what you need to make sure is set up in your TCA building and in your ProLink HFA system to ensure that those 86.9s are going to generate. But before that, we have our second poll question, and that is going to be actually a quiz. The TCA deal needs to be advanced to what stage in order for the Add 8609 button to be available? You have 30 seconds, and I'll start that timer now. Sam will be over there keeping track of your poll questions. Oh, I'm sorry, your quiz answers. Yeah, we didn't warn you there might be quizzes during this, but there might be, because who doesn't like a good quiz every now and then when you're going through training? Okay, Sam, I think it has been 30 seconds. Let me know when I can go ahead and advance the slide.
Yes, you can go ahead and advance.
Okay, let's see how we did. All right, 8609 app feasibility. Feasibility is your keyword to be able to have that Add 8609 button enabled. All right. So when you first go out and you're creating your 8609, the tax form year, when it defaults, it's going to default to the most recent version of the 8609 that we have. And I know that we talk about this sometimes. We are usually not in the loop with the IRS per se. And so if there are any tax form updates coming your way, I know our product team checks regularly, but if you know that there's going to be an update to tax forms, reach out to us via support or via email and let us know. We are probably on top of it, but let's be absolutely sure. Once you have created your 8609, then you're going to select your credit type. And we have 9%. Hold on a sec. I'm going to bring up the system real quick and pop in here. So I have an example to look at. This is where I'm hoping that I didn't time out on my on the application. We're also going to talk about the differences between the combinations of 8609s that you might find when you're generating your 8609. And that's going to take a second. So we'll go on. When you first created the tax form status, that's kind of for you to understand, like, okay, we're in process, we're ready to submit. We're working on it. We're not like we haven't finished it yet. So you can set those to several values, and I'm still staring at my screen waiting for it to pop up for me. So once you have created it, and a lot of some of the fields that populate are going to be based on which credit type that you selected. But once you create your 8609 and you've saved it the first time after selecting credit type, tax form year, status, etc., then it's going to display with some data that's already been populated in the system. So let me bring up an example now that I have my application cooperating with me of some of the types that we do have in here. So when we talk about your credit type, we have acquisition 4%, 9%. Once you save this record, and we saw when we first created it, the tax form year, it defaulted to 2020. Once you save it, that's disabled. And then you have your pending and process ready for submission and submitted. So those are the values that you can choose from on your tax form status. The date issued is going to be very important when we get to the 8610 functionality, just kind of a heads up. And then you can see that this 8609 is populated with data, most of which it did pull from the system. So additional credits, if you do need to add additional credits on the TCA building screen, those are going to be part of your line 1B. When you create the 8609, and also they are going to show up. You can choose like type, reason, cost overruns, placed in service date, other data. When you create the additional credits, it's going to show up. But this is the value down here at the bottom that's going to be added to whatever value from the building on line 1B right here. So in this example, I think I had 25,000, and then it added that extra additional credit to that. So that's how that's going to show up. And it's also based on your applicable percentage as well. So that's what additional credits, how they display on your 8609. So now let's talk about very specifically where all the data does come from when you bring up that 8609 for the first time and you're taking a look at this. So the address of the building is going to come directly from your Edit TCA building screen. So all the address information that you're going to have up here is going to show up down here. If you have like the additional Suite 200 or something like that, that would show up here as well. So it comes over here from Edit TCA building. Now, the name and the address of the housing credit agency should be set per agency, and that is set in your configuration settings. Generally, that's something that we have probably set up for you if we've recently implemented you as a client and a customer, but that can be updated by someone who does have admin privileges if you need to change that for any reason. The name and the address of the building and the owner receiving the allocation, that comes from an owner information section on your edit deal. And that's not like you would think when you're first creating the 8609, it's like, well, do I have an owner as an entity on this deal? No, that's not where it comes from. It actually is going to come from edit deal. So when you go over here to edit deal and you have your owner information down here, that's the information that's going to populate on your 8609. And then we have the employee identification number of the agency that's also in config settings. Again, that's something we usually set. But if that needs to be edited, either someone's system admin can do that, or we can do that for you if it needs to be updated. But you need to make sure all that data is correct before you're actually submitting these documents to the IRS. Additional data and how that correlates from your Edit TCA building screen into your 8609. Your building identification number, that is going to go over here into E on part 1. Your maximum housing credit dollar is going to come from your 8609 credit plus any additional credits for the applicable percentage. So here we see 1B. This would be 80,000 plus 10,000 that I had for additional credits, and that's going to display here in the 1B for each building. So every time you add additional credits, it is at the building level, and all the data on the building goes into 18609. Your maximum applicable credit percentage allowed, that's where you're going to put this, and that's going to show up down here. Maximum qualified basis, that's your 8609 basis field on your building, whether it's acquisition or construction. And that's going to display down here on line 3A. On the date the building was placed in service, when you put your place in service date on one of these, it will show up down here based on the value that you selected at the top. And then other fields can be manually populated or edited. You can also populate these via Smart Docs, but we'll get to that. So if you have the aggregate basis down here for an 8609, you could put that here. And any of the other boxes that you need to check, you're going to have to do that manually. You also have to enter the date of allocation manually. And that's probably one of the more important ones because that's going to filter into how the 8610 is going to process your 8609 data. So kind of a straightforward, if you have a 9% deal or this BEN is 9%, you update the building data for that, and it's going to show up. You'll use credit type 9% construction for that. And that's going to pull over the data that we had up here into that 8609 because that is set to 9%. This is an example where the credits were allocated in 2024. So we have our date of allocation we have populated here, and the building was placed in service in 2024. If you have 4% tax exempt, then the data from the 4% area on your edit TCA building is going to filter down into your 8609. In this example, credits were allocated in 2024 and the building was placed in service in 2024. I do realize these are the very happy paths through 8609s. So if you want to defer, like you update your building data, you have your place in service date. In this example, the place in service date is for some reason December 29th, right? So this is an example that we're probably going to defer the first year. So while your building should be placed in service, if you have placed it in service and started leasing up towards the end of the year, you might want to elect to begin the credit period the first year after it's placed in service, and then you would select yes. And sometimes your date of allocation is going to be way before it was placed in service, which is understandable. And that does affect the 8610 data as well. So if you have a 9% competitive in acquisition, you may need two 8609s for that deal based on the credit type that you're generating the 8609 for. Same thing for 4% tax exempt. 4% tax exempt bond and acquisition, you may end up generating two 8609s for that based on your credit type. So hitting the high points here, the data that populates is going to depend on the credit type you've selected on that 8609 and the data that you have populated on the building for each credit type. So there is a way, if you wanted to, you could use Smart Docs to create 8609s. If you have, for whatever reason, like you have a project coming on, it's got 10 buildings and everything is just the same, or you don't want to go and create and populate the 8609s all at one time, you can make a Smart Docs and then map all those 8609 fields into your Smart Docs and then populate them and then send that up to create the 8609s for you. They can, again, you have to be an 8609 app feasibility in order to do that. We do have a couple of agencies who have done this already. They've created their own 8609s to populate, or created their own Smart Docs specific to 8609s to populate 8609 data. So that's kind of a shortcut if you don't want to have to go through and click, so many times. Just put it in a spreadsheet and then send it up to ProLink HFA, and it's going to stub out all of those for the deal, as long as it's an 8609 app feasibility. Now another opportunity presented itself last year. We had one of our agencies, and we talked about this during one of our earlier webinars this year. They have data they need to report for state, and so we only have IRS documents in our system, but they wanted to create a Smart Docs as a customized option to provide a state 8609 form, so kind of a custom thing that may be local to you. And we were able to create that using their data, and then using some crazy VLOOKUP stuff to be able to select, hey, like this is the address of the specific building and the data that was coming back for that. So if that's something you're interested in, let us know. It's something we could do for you. We could help you figure out how you wanted to do it. But if you do need to report state to the state for your state tax credits, let us know. We can help you out with that. Now, 8609s are going to be ready to be part of the 8610 package only when the date issue field on the 8609 has been entered and saved. If the 8609 does not have the date issue populated, it's not going to automatically show up when we're in the 8610 and we want to add our 8609s to that. So, and again, I think from just a process perspective, until you issue those 8609s, you don't want to make them part of your 8610 package. One thing that we are going to talk about, and I didn't go into in the initial part, another thing you want to do before you're going to go in to create your 8610s is make sure your 8610 Schedule A's, if you have them, for your carryovers exist. And those are what you create on the edit deal. Those also, oops, so sorry, we just had a visitor. Those also will filter down into the 8610 when they're created. So now we're going to talk about the 8610 tax form utility. First question, and I think this is the last poll question for our session today. Does your agency currently use the tax form 8610 utility? And we have 30 seconds to answer that question. Well, I have some water. And Sam, I'm counting down. We're halfway there. And I think that we are done. Everybody should have entered their answer by now, yes or no. Sam, you let me know when we're good to go to the next slide.
Yes, we are, Sarah.
Okay. Yes. No. Okay. Um, Hopefully if you don't use it right now, and it's just something you haven't figured out how to do or you're not set up for that, you're going to learn a little bit what we need to do to get the 8610 utility working for you. And if you have any questions about implementing it or using it, because you should already have it as a ProLink HFA client, let us know and send a ticket to support. We're happy to go through that with you if we need to, if we haven't before. So most of you know more than I do what you have to use the 8610 for as far as reporting all the data based on all the allocations you've had for a specific year. I know that some agencies sometimes get behind and you don't always, have it on a timely manner. You don't always like issue your 8609s when they've been allocated or even when they placed in service. Sometimes you just get kind of it builds up. And the best way to utilize the 8610 is to keep on top of all your allocations and all your 8609 forms and Schedule A. So once the end of the year comes and then you have to go into the next calendar year and report for the previous year, all that data is already set up for you. Oh, let me go back. I got excited and I clicked. So some of you do have multiple housing credit agencies that you have to coordinate and file your tax form 8610 with. I don't know, I vaguely recall talking to someone from one of our agencies about this. I'd be interested to find out how that looks and how the 8610 package you provided them feeds into the bigger picture for who you're reporting to. And if for some reason there are some situations where you have to report on some properties and not others, which I can't imagine you might have two separate 8610 packages, but who knows? But yeah, if you have any like, examples, real world examples for using 8610s, whether it's good or bad, if you could reach out to me, email me, let me know. I'd like to find out what some of your challenges and what some of your successes are with using the 8610, especially when other housing agencies are involved. So the tax form 8610 utility is a utility, which means it's not a screen, not an edit screen. It takes pieces and parts from across ProLink HFA to populate with your 8609 data. And you can have multiple years going if you want to, for whatever reason. I do know, like in our test environment, a lot of times we're testing, so we might have a bunch of tax form years for whatever reason. Sometimes you can have one that's amended and one that's not. That's perfectly normal, but there's no limit to how many tax form 8610s that you can create for a specific year. Just be very cognizant that you want to have like one 8610 to rule them all. So, once you've gotten the one that you want, delete the ones that you're not using. Once you've submitted it, that's kind of like, we're good, we're done. And this is kind of like your source of truth for whatever reason. Now, once you get to the 8610 utility, you can either click into an existing row for one that you've been working on and you just haven't set the status, or if you want to create a new one, you can. So I want to kind of pop over into the system over here and go down to utilities. Let me make this kind of bigger. So when we talk about the 8610 utility, we are talking, it is all the way down here. So I'll go ahead and bring up the 8610 screen. Let's see what we have in our test system. We're only going to see this if I haven't timed out again. Oh, look, there it is. Okay. So we have a few that we've created, but let's go ahead and take a look at something that's been submitted before. Going into an existing record, you can change and edit these if you need to, but if you're going to update anything, you definitely want to make an amended report. This is not a really good example because it doesn't have a lot of data in it. But if I want to create click on new, it's going to pop up and it's going to be pre-populated with just a little bit of data, mostly the name of our housing credit agency and the address. And again, we talked about that during the 8609 creation, where that information is going to come straight from a config setting along with that employer ID number. And so here, if you need to do previous ones, we can. Right now, we're just at 2024. At the beginning of the year, I think we will have tax form year 2025 ready to go because some people will be reporting on 2025 next year. Your tax form statuses are pending in process, ready for submission and submitted. And a lot of these are mostly just for you internally to keep track of them and know what's been done, what's going on. But this is kind of what a new one's going to look like. And I believe once you save this tax form year, it's locked. And if you want to start over, you messed up at that point, you can delete it if you have delete privileges. And you can see here when you hover over the delete button, you cannot delete this tax form 8610 until it has been saved first. You can't delete something that technically doesn't exist. So that is what you might see when you are creating your new 8610. Same example I showed, the example that I just showed you. When you do new, you're going to notice that all of the values here for the reconciliation in part 1, they're all going to be 0. And that's because we haven't added any data to them yet. So the fields that auto-populate, these are the ones we're going to talk about. And this may not be the exact example I had shown you in the system because I've done things to some cycles and stuff during setting up for training. So 7B, this one's going to come from the Tax Credit Authority 9% tab of your Edit TCA cycle for that specific year. So if I go over, like right now, we're kind of working on 2024. And if I'm going to bring up my allocation cycles, I've gone back into utilities, and I know that we just had an allocation cycle previous to this. We click on allocation cycles, and I want to go into, what one do I have here? 9% tax credit authority. And we'll see if the data is the same or if I've done anything interesting to it. And this is the allocations to state. So I haven't messed up this cycle. Go me, yay. That's the value that we're talking about. And it comes right from your tax credit 9% authority tab on your edit TCA cycle for the tax form year. Then we have the amount returned. So 7C is going to be the amount returned from your return credits tab on that current cycle. So you can see here it says 148,000. And I'm going to bring this back over here again. We're on the 9% 2024 cycle type, the return credits tab. And this is the amount returned. So that's going to populate 7C. So once you have saved your 8610, you're going to see the additional tabs that are going to become available. You'll have the associated 8609s and the Schedule A's in the Files tab. I don't know if you use the Files tab on this edit, but you could if you wanted to, because all the documents that we're going to add with the 8609s and all that's coming from the system. I'm not sure you can use that Files tab for something else, but it won't be part of the package. I just want to put that out there. So once you click on the 8609s tab, at that point, you'll be able to select any 8609s you want to add by clicking the Add 8609 button. So when this first pops up, it's going to be auto-populated with the 8609s that have that date issued field that equals the tax form year. So 2024 is automatically going to bring up any of the 8609s that have that date issued right here. If they were issued in 2023 or 2022, those you would have to look for separately. But at that point, if these are the ones that you want, you can add, select it, and close. Let me go over back to our utility and do this in real time while I have some water. This may not be a new one. I may be creating a new one. Yeah, I don't want to do that. I want to create a brand new one just so we can see. I'm going to set mine to in process because technically it's in process because I'm doing things over here. So now that I've saved that, and let me make this a little bigger. I just want to check that. Okay, I just want to tell everybody really quick who's watching this video. I changed the theme on my computer, and now my checkboxes show up as red, which was unexpected but awesome. So if you don't see the red in your system, it's not a ProLink thing. It's obviously a Microsoft thing. So don't get excited. I just wanted to bring that up. I really like seeing the red, but it may not happen for you, and that's okay. All right, so now once I do click on the 8609 tab and I create my add 8609s, it wants me to save this first because apparently I made some weird little edit because I checked that box. I'm going to click add 8609s, and then it's going to bring up my modal. It's going to show me all the 8609s that have been issued in 2024. Now there may be more on here. Oh no, there's only a few. Huh. Not what I expected because I feel like let's do a quick review. I feel like because these are added to another 8610, that may be the situation that we're looking at. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here back to the one that I was working on because I have added a lot of data in here, and I'm going to remove all of these because I expected these to show up. So there you go. If you've added these to 18609 or 18610 instance, they will not be available for additional Florence. But let's make sure I'm now that I have a memory cell twitching, like that is indeed correct. All right, so I'm going to go back and I get the one that we set to in process. So now when I go back in here, now that I've removed those 86.9s from another one, and I bring up my add 8609 button. There we go. There's a lot more on there. So you can look and see there's like all of these are issued in 2024. Now, if for whatever reason, there's one that I didn't report on from 2023, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I might as well add this. Well, there's not going to be one out there, but let's find out. That is not attached to another cycle. I could add one from 2022 if I wanted to for whatever reason, just to report on it, but I'm not going to because all I care about right now is anything that was issued in 2024 because for some reason I feel like that is the right thing to do. So this is where you start adding them. And I kind of want to add them one at a time or just add like 9% and then add 4%. So bear with me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my 9%. 9%, 9%, 9%, 9%, 9%. Oh, look, there's a lot. So these are all the 8609s I'm adding live into the system. These may not match the screenshots because I'm doing something a little different. Now, these are all the 8609s I've added. You can see that the one thing they do have in common, date issued. Date of allocation and the credit type, we'll talk about that in a minute. But I'm going to go ahead and save this. Now, when I calculate this, it's going to update some of these buttons. Or update some of these numbers, sorry. So once you save it, you do need to calculate it because it needs to go and find out what's going on with your 8609s in order to populate this data. So this is showing that 3 of these 8609s that were 9% that I just added, the credits were allocated in 2024. 5 of them were prior to 2024. And then we have another one that's attributed to tax exempt bonds Then we have a value here. We don't have anything for Schedule A's yet. But let me go ahead and then I'll add some more. Let's add some of our 4%. Oh, whoops. I save a lot. You can save a lot too. Whenever I touch anything, it yells at me. I don't know why. So let's add a few more of these. Let's add some 4% and some acquisitions. That one doesn't have a date of allocation, so that's not going to be helpful. So once I add those, now I have more 8609s added with different types. And we're about to go through all the different types and how these work and how they filter in. This isn't updated until I hit calculate, and that might update other values below, but we'll talk about that. So now it's saying, hey, I have like a total of 15 different attached forms, which right now we know it's 8609s only because I haven't done anything with Schedules A's yet. So let's get to showing this. I just walked through this exercise with adding these and how this data is used to calculate the data on the 8610. Then adding Schedule A's, which, okay, I'll go ahead and do that. I wasn't sure. Let's see if we have any. We should. Every time you calculate, you need to hit save. And that's going to save that calculation. Let's see what we have. Oh, look, we have a few. I'll add these 3. Once they're added, if I go over here, it's not going to show it yet because I need to calculate. Now it's going to recognize those Schedule A's, and now I'm going to save it just because, again, saving is your friend. All right. So same idea. These are the same ones. I added 3 of them. You can create this as part of your carryover allocation procedures. Probably Schedule A should be created at final cost certification, but once those are created, this is how you get them onto your 8610 package. So once and you saw me kind of walk through this, I always get excited and get ahead because that's just apparently what I do. But once all 8609s and Schedule A's are associated, you can calculate and save. Now, you saw me calculate as I go. That's perfectly okay. That's not just going to update part 1. It's also going to update all the values that are part of the part 2 reconciliation of credit ceilings and allocations, right? But you want to make sure, like, okay, these are all the forms I added. This is right. If you have your own, like, post-it that has all the 8609, the number of 8609s, you can compare. But you want to make sure you have the right number of 8609s and Schedule A's attached that you were expecting to see. And this will also update as we go. We're going to talk about where those values come from. So again, we've done this ad nauseum to this point. This comes from date issued, date of allocation, and cycle types. And let's fill that out just a little bit. So when we talk about part 1, updating based on date issued, date of allocation, and the cycle types, what we mean is these numbers are going to be different based on when the allocation happened. So let's see what that looks like. First of all, in this example that I have here, this is the only 9% that was allocated in 2024. So that's a 1. That's why that only says 1. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 8609s where the credits were allocated prior to the current tax year. And then we have 4% construction, 4% construction, and then acquisition. So that's 3. These are projects that are financed by tax exempt bonds. And then over here, we have the total dollar amount attributable to projects financed by tax exempt bonds. So if you add these 3 together that show up down here, that's going to populate this value right here. That's where that comes from. And then how many Schedule A's do we have? In the example I have in our presentation, it's just the 1. So that's where all that data comes from. And again, we're going to have these materials available for you. So if you like the color coding, hopefully you're not colorblind. There's only one green one. I don't know how that looks, but this will help. And we have the numbers associated that you can kind of look at it and and kind of make those connections in your head, connect the dots. So when we get into the part 2 part that we're talking about here, 7A is one that just doesn't get populated. We don't store this information. It's only applicable to certain states. The per capita credits does come from the 9%. We went over that a little bit earlier where I brought up the cycle to show you. Same thing with the total return tax credits from the 9% tab. That shows up over here in 7C. We already kind of looked at that. 7F. Now this is one of the ones that's a little tricky because it depends on a couple of things that programmatically have to happen for this to populate correctly. So if you have an 8610, in this example, this is a 2023 form, and it has some data in line 9, right? So because it's an amended report, when you create your additional year, it's going to populate your 7F field from the 2023 9. I know, doesn't make a lot of sense. It's like, why can't it just be the same field? It's just not. But that's where that value is going to come from. And then when we talk about part 1 down here, summing part 1 and part 2, this is the total amount included on line 7F that was allocated during 2024 to qualified nonprofit organizations. If for whatever reason you have that value, that's going to populate in that little H area right there. And then where do we have Schedule A's? Why am I having a problem? I believe part 2 for all Schedule A's is carryover. Allocation subject to nonprofit set aside has the yes checkbox selected. And that would be right here. I believe that's AB. Okay. So let's go ahead and look at this a little bit and see what's going to show up over here. So we have a few fields that are populating with different values because we have different information. We added a whole lot of Schedule A's, so this is a little bit different now. And then we have the total credits allocated during 2024, smaller 7F line C, which is 0 right now. I'm going to put in some numbers just to make myself feel better about that. I'm going to say this one more time. So this down here at number 9 says enter the smaller of line 7F or 8C. So I populated 7F there because I didn't have the amended form previously. And then this is going to show the smaller amount. You can update these or verify these if you have to go back and you found some glaring errors from your 8609s. I'm sure you have an internal process that's going to allow you to go and make those edits if you need to. But the 8610 in general is a good overview. You can go verify that data to find out if it's correct, where something might have got input incorrectly, or whatever you need to do. So then you can check these checkboxes manually if you want to. I feel I'm not reading these for comprehension. We're just going to say yes, because we're going to pretend this is the best 8610 package ever. And we're going to go ahead and save this and be like, yeah, we're good. We're done. We have everything and we're good to go. So if we're ready for submission, this might be something that, you know, if you have a workflow set up, letting like someone who the one person, if you're not the person who signs and submits it, and you have someone in a supervisory capacity who has to review and sign it before sending it in, you could always set up a workflow that once the 8610 status is updated to ready for submission, that they can come and take a look at it and be like, yeah, this is good to go. So there's 3 different steps, and we're going to go through each one. I'm going to show you in the system real quick. Let's bring this back up. So once you have all the data complete, you verify that it's right, you've gone through and you've been like, yep, we need to tweak this, or this is incorrect, or somebody put the wrong year on date of allocation on this 8609. I was really expecting to see this project in here. Why isn't it? We are humans, we are not perfect. Then you can save, after you've saved and calculated for the last time, create the IRS form 8610, and that's going to generate the PDF form. And this is the same thing with the 8609s. Once you're done, select all of those to create the 8609s, and those will be generated as one big package of PDFs. So this, in this example, we have 10 pages, right? And then create tax form Schedule A, same thing, create the Schedule A's. You're going to get your PDFs generated that have your carryover allocations from your Schedule A's. So I will pop back in here. I want to calculate one more time just because I like calculating. Come on. And this is a reminder to save it. So now, once you hit create, I believe we're going to download. So it will just download for you to open. Same thing with 8609s, but you have to select them all. Or if for whatever reason you just don't want to select them all. But then once you hit create 8609s, it's also going to generate that PDF in one big PDF package and download it. Same thing with Schedule A's. Select them all, create Schedule A's. Those get downloaded as well. So your 8610 is going to just show a PDF file if you need to print it out or have it digitally signed. Name and title of authorizing official, that's going to be something that gets set up in the config settings. We just have it set up like this because it's our testing environment. So whoever's name is here is the person who needs to sign that and date it. And then we have our PDF package of 8609s. So this has a whole bunch of 8609s in it because I went a little crazy with the 8609s. And so you can see that this is going to have multiple pages. Now, if these 8609s, they're going to bring in the latest, greatest once you've added them to the 8610 from the TCA deal. So I don't know if these would be digitally signed or not. That might be something you do externally. These just get all put in one gigantic package. But we have 18 pages of 8609s here. And your data may vary because you know my data is test data, so it's not always perfect, although I try to use realistic data as much as possible. And then we have our Schedule A. So this Schedule A had a few more in it. I think we have 3 or 4 here. So your PDF is going to show up with your Schedule A's in the data and whatever went in there and any other values that were associated or created during your creating your Schedule A's. And so we only have 3 there. So once you've downloaded those, you can send those to the IRS after they're signed. So that's all I have. And we're a little bit early. We got about 12 more minutes. Do we have any questions about the 8610s or the 8609s? I'm not sure who's doing Q&A.
Hi, Sarah. No questions currently. If you're an attendee, we are encouraging you to share any questions in the chat, and Sarah does have time to address them.
I do.
I'll let you know if I see any come in.
Okay. But while we do have a few more minutes, so I just want to kind of go into, what did I do with my, there it is. I want to go into my browser and go back into the system and go into config settings. And I always assume that the folks that attend our ProLink Tech Live are customers that have been with us for a while that already know everything. But I kind of want to take a step back from that and remember that may not be the case. So I'm going to go into my config settings. And for those of you who this is, kind of a new thing, we have some things that I have access to because I'm assistant administrator and a ProLink person. But one of the things you can look for is I always call it like Google. I search on the word tax, and that's going to go through this data view and show me what we have. we've updated our 8823 authorized signer would be there, but this is the one that we just saw in the 8610, the tax form agency official name for 8610 and 8609s. When you see things over here in like any kind of data view and you see like the ellipsis, if you hover over that, it's going to kind of show you a little more data. And this is where we have updated the, just to say name and title of authorizing official. I panicked when I first saw this \n, but that's just a carriage return. So when this shows up on your form, it's not like a run-on address. It's actually formatted correctly. And this is where your agency name and things of that nature should be on there. So if you find that these are incorrect or you need to change them for whatever reason, I believe these are, not sure if we can set these for you or not. I can never remember. I know there's one person who told me if that's true. If these are things that your system admin can't update and you need to update them, let us know because we can do it for you. And I think I am really going to stop there, Sam. We do have 9 minutes left. We're a little bit early, but if we don't have anything else, Alexis, I guess I will turn it over to you.
Real quick, a question did just come in from Rebecca Isom. To confirm the 8609's issue date located specifically on the 8609 field needs to be filled out to be included in the 8610, right?
Yes.
Okay.
When you search on it, it's only going to bring back the ones that have been issued and that like it has to have a date issued to show up. And if you want to look for a previous year, you can put in the previous, but when you first bring up that modal to add 8609s, it's going to look at the date issued for the tax form year that you've selected. That's more of the answer than you probably wanted, Becky, but there you go.
Great. Thank you.
All right.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Sarah, for a great session. And thank you for everybody that was joining us for this session. I hope you found some value in what was covered today. And for the next 15 minutes, we're going to open up our coffee and bagel discussion until 2:45 p.m. Eastern time. So please go into the discussions area. We'll be able to pick one winner of anybody that joins, and they will receive a $50 Starbucks gift card. When you click on the discussion item under the community menu tab, you'll find the rooms set up where you can join. Each room can accommodate up to 6 people, or you can create your own room and have others join you. Please meet and greet and socialize with each other for the next break until our next session, which is on custom data views with Alessandra Billy from ProLink. That session does start at 2:45 p.m. Eastern. So enjoy the break. Hope to see some of you guys in the coffee and bagel and for sure at the next session. Thank you.